So you were sharing a little bit about how you
Yeah.
approached thinking about coaching, and that the 360 felt to you like sort of non-negotiable in terms of a piece you wanted to incorporate. So if you want to just pick back up with that.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is just because I'm supervising people and I'm leading this team, and these are all roles that are new to me. And
Mhm.
I'm sort of externally for any type of feedback around what's working well, what could be done better. And I think some of this also is testing my own assumptions and testing my own thoughts about myself and my work because
Mhm.
of opinions about how I was doing and what I was doing.
Yeah.
I really needed feedback from folks. And if
Mhm.
I felt like in order to do my work well, it is very important to me to hear from the people I'm working with. Like the whole, it's the whole like cornerstone of healthcare for the homeless and cornerstone of medical respite care is collaborative
Yeah.
teamwork. And so um, just doing coaching solo doesn't seem to be addressing my bigger goals of I want to be what this team needs and what this organization needs. And
Mhm.
so the team and this organization to help me get there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a like a thoughtful way to put it, right? That like people opt in to be coached because they want to grow, they want to learn more about themselves. But so often when you come with a coaching goal around like management and leadership and growing within a team in an organizational setting, like to actually get feedback that informs how you're really showing up and how people are experiencing you,
Right.
is so crucial, right? And it's not always included with a coaching engagement, but I think where it can be, and especially in your case with this huge new thing that you were navigating, right? Like it made so much sense to do the two things together and to start with that. Um, so I want to just ask you to reflect back a little bit on what you thought you were going to learn from this process of asking your colleagues for feedback. And how that compares. But I guess maybe before we jump in, I just want to say like in doing this together, what happened was that I did a bunch of interviews with Julia's colleagues. So I talked to them separately, privately, and then compiled their feedback for her around a couple of topics and questions. And then it was anonymous, so people felt safe, hopefully, to give that feedback honestly. But then Julia got to benefit from some real examples and some depth of detail. So that's just like a little bit about what it was for those who aren't familiar.
It's so funny too because I had, asked, given my team a heads up that we were going to be doing this and that you would reach out to them to schedule interviews. And it was really funny. Somebody on the team had met with you and then sent a message to the group and was like, I had my conversation with Ellen. It wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. She's so nice. I was like, you're nervous? You're nervous about this? So it was a surprise to me that, it's just such sensitive, sweet people. Yeah, I had a lot of expectations of what feedback I was going to get, and I was dead wrong about most of it,
Okay.
which was so incredibly
Yeah.
helpful to actual feedback around it because you have ideas about yourself and ideas about your limitations, and one of the things that I um, learned through coaching is just the how much negative I have in my head all day long, just
Mhm.
as I'm like, I forgot that email, I didn't do that, like just really kind of hard reflection on myself most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's not always based in reality. And it's, yeah, it's pretty rough. And so, what I was expecting was she doesn't know what she's doing. She's like, I have a lot of imposter syndrome in this position. And so that's what I was expecting to come from folks. It's just like she's trying, but this isn't natural to her
Mhm.
and stuff. And it, in fact, I kind of got the opposite, which I was surprised by, which was she has deep knowledge and expertise in this field. We fully trust her expertise in this work, and we want her to lead it. And
Mhm.
so there was a little bit of a snap, like oh, I got to switch this light on inside of people do see me in this way, and I need to step up to that and
Mhm.
stop down because this is what they're seeing and it's what they're asking me to do.
Yeah.
So that pretty powerful, just this sense of, it's not that everybody's looking at me and thinking this gal doesn't know what she's doing. They're actually saying, I think she does, and I would like for her to trust that, and for her to step into that power a little bit more,
Yeah.
and that decision making. The other thing that was really fascinating to me, and I think was probably the most helpful feedback that I got, is I am very protective of the people on my team. I care real hard about them, and I care real hard about their experience of their work.
Yeah.
When I was a staff of one for a while, I often really felt out on a limb or out on an island and without support. Yeah. And like, I didn't always know what I was doing, and I don't want any of them to ever feel that. I feel so strongly about them not feeling that way, that what I didn't realize is, in my attempt to be really supportive and really present and just really supportive of their work, is that I was sometimes standing in front of them, like just stepping ahead of them to, don't worry, I'll take this on, I can do this, like really filling the space and filling silences, and not really letting them lead. And that was such a shock to my system, because I had been running myself ragged trying to be so supportive of all of them in a way that wasn't how they feel supported.
Yeah.
And I know that, and I wouldn't have known that without asking them. So that's a huge revelation for me, and it was an opportunity for me to calm down and step back and allow these adults who are really smart and creative and professional to do their jobs well, and let them ask for support in the way that they need it, instead of me assuming that support looks like me leading calls, or me stepping in, a conversation is silent, or me volunteering stuff. That's what they need. And I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so relatable what you're sharing, because I think, like, on the one hand, the first piece is around not fully understanding how strong your strengths are, how much people are seeing what you can do when you have your own doubts. And the second piece is around, like, sort of projecting, if you will, onto others the thing that you typically like or need. It's sort of this, like, the golden rule idea, like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And a concept that I love and have been challenged by the last few years is, like, the platinum rule instead of the golden rule, which is, like, do unto others how they would like to have things done, right? And so it's this distinction of, like, well, when we ask them, they can say, like, I don't need that from you, and actually it's holding me back that you're trying so hard to, like, take stuff off my plate, or to let me not have to worry about that I can't even grow and make the mistakes I need to make.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's, I mean, even to the extent of getting the feedback of, I'm not modeling a work-life balance because I'm trying to take on so much instead of stepping away and letting folks lead their work. So yeah, it was just I had never thought that is what would come up. And it's been such an important lesson for me professionally, about really pausing before I step into a space and just thinking, like, is this my space to step into? Does this space need me? I maybe be in, like, when is it my time to step up? And it's just, I'm coming from a space of, I was the only one who was supposed to step up and speak related to medical respite. So I earned this, like, reaction of, okay, I'm going to jump in, and not anymore. There's 9 people on my team. Brilliant. And so, yeah, take a seat has been really helpful for me.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful too. Like, just that reassurance of, like, okay, like, I can give these people some space to really soar. And maybe that means I don't have to completely deplete myself in the process, which is such a common thing people do, especially when they start supervising or parenting or any number of things, right? In terms of caretaking or responsibility. Are there any other impacts on how you show up at work or even in personal life that you feel like you've noticed things that have shifted for you since the feedback or since the coaching?
So I do think my my stress level has gone down. Just
Mhm.
the chaos has relaxed a little bit, and some of it is just continuing to learn that nobody knows what they're doing. Like that's none of us have done this before. None of us have lived this life before. So trust your instincts. Like I think that has really helped me relax a little bit, just knowing that my colleagues feel confident in my expertise
Mm,
and I need to meet them there and trust that I have good instincts. Yes, some of this is stuff I've never done before. Yes, I'm still learning and will always be learning about how to lead a team well. But I do trust that I have good instincts around this, and my intentions are really to be inclusive. And so I think that's really just changed my level of chaos every day when I
mhm.
like come and look at what my day has for me. It's just, you know what you're doing and you're going to make the next right choice
Mhm.
here and trust
Mhm.
that every day.
Yeah.
And when mistakes will be made and you will respond to that.
Right.
And so just that's like turned the pressure down a bit for it doesn't always have to be right.
Mhm.
There's no perfect way to do this. Just do what you know is inclusive and considerate and yeah, thoughtful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's so big. I mean, it sounds like sometimes these simple things, but they're actually really
Yeah,
profound when you layer them into the like the day-to-day experience, and just shifting some of that pressure and stress that can have such a huge physical, emotional, spiritual, like, impact as well as like, just what it looks like at work. So yeah,
right.
thank
Yeah.
you for sharing
The
that.
one other thing that I will say is I when I came into coaching, I really, really had this mindset of executive coaching is totally who I am at work is 100% separate from who I am outside of work. And executive coaching, it has nothing to do with me outside of work.
Mhm.
It's only me space. And this is less from the 360 and more just from coaching that I learned that has been really important for me is that no, you're one integrated person in all spaces that you're in. And so things that I have worked on personally outside of work are showing up at work as well. And so that's just been really helpful for me, especially just around really wanting to curate a positive work environment
Mhm.
for people on my team and really wanting to curate their experience of their work. Um, and learning that there's something a little manipulative about that and instead of just full experience what they experience and
Mhm.
give them the opportunity to give feedback and that's getting underneath what's behind that has been really helpful for me because it's like oh that's what's behind other things in my life and so just being able to recognize when that starts to show up at work
Yeah.
you're like oh I know that part of myself and I
Yeah.
see it showing up at work
Mhm.
um, and having an awareness of that has just been really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we work together on like not making that mean something bad, right? I think it's so often that when we think, oh, I've been doing this work in therapy or with my family or in some other capacity, and like, oh, it's showing up here, like that's so frustrating. And that's valid, right? You can feel frustrated.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It just means that you're a person who happened to have, a tendency or a way of seeing the world. And oh, okay, today it's showing up in the workspace, but like, what do we want to do with that to support you based on what you've learned about yourself in these other spaces? Like drawing on those things because you have invested a lot in your own development and growth beyond just the coaching container. And so, seeing those as beneficial insights, right? Even though at first it could be a little edgy.
Pointing at first, but then it's just like, oh, this is just a part of me that's going to show up all the time. That I
Yeah.
having an awareness of it, at least being able to recognize when it shows up, um, it makes me soften to it a little bit more. I don't feel quite as judgmental about it because it's like, oh, I know that little part of me
Yeah.
that sometimes, and yeah, it helps me understand the feelings that I might have around work situations.
Totally. And I think, you and I had talked about this outside of this conversation, but it sort of speaks to that notion of like, coaching can transcend, or like what you're working on can transcend into different spaces. So we sometimes think, oh, it's this like, luxury to be able to do this at work, or I'm having sort of, this special treatment by investing in this. But when it can ripple in all these different spaces, it sort of makes a little bit more sense, I think, sometimes for people. So
Yeah, I mean, I waited too long. I think, there's no wrong time for coaching, but it is something that I wish I had considered sooner, because it does feel like a great opportunity for people as their role is changing, just to prepare and process and think through all the logistics of that, and also get what are my assumptions about being a supervisor? What are my assumptions about leadership? What are my assumptions about management? What are my assumptions about myself related to that? So,
totally.
yeah, I think I'm glad that I came to it when I did, but I think sooner would have been fantastic as well.
Mhm.
So I don't see it as a luxury. I see it as a really good professional development tool that people
Mhm.
should uh, more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspectives. And is there anything else you wanted to share before we close out?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that's everything. Yeah, I think I really feel, reflecting back on where I was coaching and after coaching, I really do feel differently. And that
Mhm.
three is a huge part of it. And I do figuring out how to continue to incorporate the 360 and how to continue to engage my team in feedback so that it's not one time we did this 360 and now we never talk about it ever
Yeah.
again. Really trying not to do that,
Mhm.
like just trying to talk about how this is what happened in the 360 and this is the feedback that I got and here's how I'm trying to continue to implement it, and really
Yeah.
making continue, I think is important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that that probably cuts across almost any sort of coaching work and topic is like, it's all fine and good when you're in this sort of supportive container, when you're working with someone consistently, but how are you going to use it in your life and your work beyond? And how do the people who have a stake in that, like your team members who offered their time and feedback, like see the ways that you're continuing to leverage that, to ask their continued feedback and
Mhm.
grow. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I'm going to just invite if anyone's listened to the end here and you have questions for me or for Julia, anything you're curious about in terms of her feedback process or the coaching journey, feel free to send them to me via DM and I can get them answered for you. And if you're curious about coaching yourself, there's a couple things you can do. One is you can book a discovery call with me where we can just sit down and have a chat and see where you're at, what you're thinking about. So the link for that is in my bio. And there's also a 2-session mini series, which is just a way to get a taste of coaching in sort of a small bit where we'll just do some deep diving on where you're at and what you might need to get unstuck about. So that's also at the link in my bio. So if you have any questions, send them our way. And thank you for listening. And thank you so much, Julia, for your time and for doing this.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll see you all next time. Take
Bye.
care.